we'd like to take a moment to announce...
Hello everyone, Benji here. So, September has been a pretty active month in terms of furry drama. I mean, I've personally been spending the last few months preparing to graduate college and doing a deep dive into something I'm pretty interested in talking about on this channel in the future. So I'm pretty sure a little cheat video where I talk about an assortment of furry drama that happened this month won't be too much of a bad thing, right? I'm gonna assume you said yes. So anyway, this has been a pretty eventful month in terms of drama. Most of the larger ones kind of having a theme to them. A theme of making you ask, is it really worth it to care about the reputation of the fandom? So, let's just talk about it, and see if we can find an answer to that question ourselves. Let's start off with one that went pretty viral in the start of the month, September 10th, 2024. Libs of TikTok posted a video with the caption, "Little kid is frightened and burst into tears at the sight of a furry in public. When did this become normalized?" Now, if you don't know what Libs of TikTok is, it's an extremely conservative social media account run primarily on Twitter by Shia Raichik. One scroll through the account and it's pretty obvious that the account's run on a far-right anti-LGBT agenda. This propaganda has resulted in a multitude of harassment campaigns against those they talk about, whether it be a children's hospital that offers medical care to transgender kids, or schools receiving a multitude of bomb threats after a tweet concerning the school was made. But here, we have them going for a furry who had the audacity to walk by a child while wearing a partial fursuit in public. Just taking a look at the video, I don't think I even have to say anything more than the obvious. The fursuiter was doing nothing in the wrong here. He was walking out the store, and a child cried at him. When did this become normalized? If you go into the comments, you'll get the exact dichotomy of replies you would expect. You have the more sensible replies, those like, "Kids also cry when they see a Mickey Mouse costume. I'm not a furry, but come on now. Oh please, my nephew had the same reaction to the Easter Bunny. I don't know nothing about no furries. But little bro need to man up." But then you have replies such as, "His survival instinct kicked in because a predator was around. The kicker? That piece of shit furry probably got his rocks off when it happened. This is the goal. Stay the hell away from our kids." Now, if I showed you this without context, could you tell it was in response to a furry walking past a kid? There would also be a reply from the furry in this video, Oral. They would quote retweet the video saying, "I'm getting attacked for just minding my own business. All I did was walk past and I'm being attacked by millions. At this point, I'm not even exaggerating, you see how many nuts follow these guys. Along with all the people on TikTok and Instagram. I did nothing wrong." So, because of this video, Oral went on to receive harassment on social media, all for the cardinal sin of being a furry who walked past a child. Now, a large chunk of this harassment would be mitigated by the support Oral would receive from the fandom. A number of other furries quote tweeting and giving their stance on the post in support of Oral, who would later tweet out, "Thanks to everyone calling me a monster. Monsters are hella hot, so it's a lovely compliment." What? Oh, this is the wrong tweet. How the hell did this get in here? Who would later tweet out, "Thanks for the boost in followers, Libs of TikTok. You are also showed just how wonderful the fandom is. So many wonderful people have been so supportive and it's really helping me through the situation. People really do care." Now, this was a pretty straightforward case of drama, all things considered. A Twitter account attempted to paint furries as a plague on society through badly framed video, and so members of the community showed support to a fellow member who was wrongly receiving harassment. The age-old tale of furry does thing and fear-mongering ensues, right? Well, I feel that this leads pretty well into another discourse that occurred earlier in the week. So, on September 5th, an image would be posted where a group of fursuiters were hanging out, and decided to take this photo op together, flipping off a Chick-fil-A restaurant. Excellent Rack posting it with the caption, fuck Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A hate isn't anything really new in the fandom. With the amount of anti-LGBT controversies that have befallen the community, that's probably not a surprise. But Chick-fil-A actually isn't the reason this image would spawn a controversy. That was actually due to a quote retweet of this image. A quote retweet that singled out one of these fursuiters in particular. It read, "I just want you guys to know that the one with the blue fursuit head ate their own shit." The furry being referred to in this situation is bluefolf. For those who aren't familiar with bluefolf at this point, she's a furry personality that garnered a large amount of popularity on Twitter. She hasn't been online for quite a while though. The reasons for that would be due to the harassment Blue has received, both from the usual crowd targeting her for just being vocally trans, as well as those critiquing Blue's actions following the controversies of fur sodas, where Blue's negligent actions would put the user IceFoxWorks into debt. Frankly, I would have to do an entire separate video to properly explain Blue's controversies more than I just did. But regardless, bluefolf has been getting her share of both justified critique and unnecessary harassment, so it obviously makes sense why she would be spending more time offline. However, that wouldn't stop this information of the infamous bluefolf scat video from spreading. For those out of the know, you probably don't know what this is referring to. Well, there was a fetish video that would be leaked to the public of bluefolf bending over a paper plate and placing sausage links on that plate with their rear. The thing with this video is, as someone who has been unfortunate enough to see it, all she did in the video was crap on the plate. I've yet to see any confirmation of her actually consuming it myself, but I guess people saw her dropping logs on the plate and just worked off of that. Now, what's the point of me bringing up this drama, you may be asking? Well, the leaking and spreading of bluefolf's private activities would spark an age-old debate that the fandom has seen on occasion. Will this embarrassing thing set the reputation of furries back by a decade? And every time this conversation pops up, it always feels a lot more complicated than it really should be. When opening Twitter during this time, my timeline gave me a pretty accurate depiction of what the fandom's thoughts on this were. You have this tweet from Shevgozablep saying, "Can we as a community stop putting ourselves in situations where people outside the fandom have the opportunity to clown on us and set back our public image?" Immediately followed by a tweet from Toothpick is Gay saying, "I do not give a flying fucking shit what this community's reputation is, and you shouldn't either." So, would you call me a fence-sitter for saying they're both right to an extent? It might be the inner nihilist talking, but hear me out. Besides the whole obvious fact that you aren't responsible for what other people you rarely interact with over the internet do, I think that while incidents such as these give the furry fandom a pretty bad look, I think at this point, the fandom is much too large for something like this to actually have any meaningful, lasting impact. I might get dragged for this comparison, but for those familiar with the Ava Chris Tyson situation, she was someone who was allegedly behaving around minors on Discord with a sexual and gross irresponsibility. When those allegations rolled out, you saw similar sentiments on Twitter. A number of trans users saying that Ava's actions had set trans people's reputation back by years, because now anti-LGBT people would use that one person's horrid actions to paint the entirety of a group as the same type of gross person. With this bluefolf situation, while the actions of Blue and Ava aren't equatable in the slightest, you see a number of furries parroting the same thing. That this is going to set furries back by years when, in the time it's taken me to cover this, talk about it has essentially died down. The majority of the internet moved on to talk about the next hip thing to talk about. So obviously, the actions of one furry, no matter the size of their platform, won't gravely diminish the reputation of furries as a whole. We survived the Kiro arc, guys. I'm sure we'll be fine. However, I don't think the attitude of just not caring about the fandom's reputation is a very good mindset to have. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the furry fandom represents itself as this LGBT-friendly space where people can find community through artwork, music, or whatever, as long as anthropomorphic animals are involved in some way. That's what draws people to the fandom more often than not. So clearly there is some care being put into how the fandom represents itself. The part we shouldn't be caring about is how bad actors attempt to portray the fandom. Take the Libs of TikTok drama we just talked about, for example. People like Chaya literally have to use videos of furries walking past children to try and paint us all as predators. So if bad actors are willing to say that us walking past children shows the downfall of society, why care? Why care what people like that are thinking about us furries when we as a fandom can just present how the fandom actually is outside of the drama and bad apples in the fandom? Those attacks on our reputation will hardly matter as long as we properly gatekeep our own ranks. That was a bit of a ramble, but I think what I'm trying to say here is just be a good person. That's all it takes. All the fandom needs are just good people being good people, and we'll be fine. As vague as that sounds, it's really that simple. Last up for this video, we have a drama that occurred a few days after the Libs of TikTok drama. This one involves everyone's favorite furry website, Furaffinity. If you haven't heard of Furaffinity at all, I don't know how you got here, but Furaffinity is essentially the furry website. It's a site for furries to post artwork, writing, music, and what have you. If you've engaged with furries in any meaningful way, chances are you've come across this website at some point. And if not, you've probably heard about it through the recent passing of its owner, Dragoneer, in August, or the hacking of the website that happened soon after. Well, the site seems to be under fire for completely different reasons. If you go to look at the most recent tweet FAs made on their Twitter, you'll see messages like, Dragoneer would be fucking ashamed of you all, as well as other statements, specifically from babyfurs, voicing their disdain with Furaffinity. It would appear that the Furaffinity staff are currently at odds with the babyfur community. For those unaware, the babyfur community is essentially the furry fandom's iteration of ABDL, and just like ABDLs, babyfurs will indulge in role-playing as infants or children, wearing diapers, playing with toys, you get the picture. This could be engaged with either as a coping mechanism, a form of age regression, or as a kink in the bedroom, which, it's not really my cup of tea personally, but as long as those doing it are consenting adults, I won't delve into the details if I don't have to. But what you're probably wondering here is, why is this group up in arms with Furaffinity? Well, you see, there seemed to be a ban spree going around, specifically targeting baby fur content. On September 17th, Furaffinity started banning users, citing their baby fur content as the reason. This was done with no warnings whatsoever, as it caught a lot of people by surprise. Now, I'll be honest, going into this, I was expecting these bans to just be sexual baby fur art. As I said, there are some baby furs who approach things from a kink standpoint, and in a previous video, I talked about how Furaffinity was changing their upload policy in regards to Rule 2.7, content involving minors. If you look at this policy now, the guidelines prohibit content featuring minors when the minor is in the presence of sexual activity, sexual objects, or nudity, though exceptions may be made for non-sexual depictions of birth and breastfeeding, along with the depiction of what they define the term minor as: real or fictional humanoids with a childlike body or younger than 18 years old, and any adolescent animals or fantasy creatures. While an adult character role-playing as a child isn't technically a minor going by their rules here, one would still think this rule is one they would be citing with these bans, as an adult with the mentality of a minor would be pretty sketchy to portray in a sexual situation. They do say as much in one of these ban messages. Along with citing every piece they were banning the artist for, they state, "You have done this by posting an image that depicts one or more characters with childlike appearances involved in sexual fetish activity. Baby fur, ABDL, and diaper art is allowed on Furaffinity. However, the characters cannot be physically or mentally regressed or otherwise appear to be represented as a child in fetish artwork. Based on the titles of the artwork and what I had to see myself for research, you can assume that the art deals with quite a lot of waste-filled diapers, something that this artist isn't shy about drawing. So, given that information, this explanation could make some sense. Prohibiting artwork where a character is in a sexual or fetishized situation while mentally regressed. Even though this scenario isn't explicitly listed in their upload policy, you can say it falls in line with what's already there. But the problem is that this explanation only works if that was the only baby fur content being struck, because regardless of the reason, even non-sexual depictions of baby fur art have been getting the axe lately, such as the artist Toddler Girl, who received a week-long suspension, but a good chunk of the content cited had no sexual content in it from what I've seen. So regardless of what your thoughts on this are, this shows that Fur Affinity mods aren't being entirely consistent with their handling of this, and because of this inconsistency, it led to baby furs at large assuming the worst was about to come for the site. Either Fur Affinity was slowly purging any and all baby furs, or they were getting ready to tidy up the site, making it a squeaky clean and pure platform so that they could pawn off the legacy of Dragoneer. This is something that Skiggles, Dragoneer's ex-wife and current head admin of Fur Affinity, would outright deny, saying that FA is not for sale and that there are no plans to sell it. So this leaves us at a point where the more likely solution is that there may be some infighting with the mod team, or some mods believe that the current upload policy should expand to fetishized baby fur content. This message sent by Fur Affinity staff seems to be hinting at the latter, as it elaborates on the post I mentioned earlier saying, "No new policies have gone into effect, and the content is not prohibited. Baby fur, ABDL, age regression, and diaper art are allowed on Fur Affinity, in accordance with existing rules and guidelines. However, characters who are children or are shown in a physically or mentally regressed state to the point of having childlike proportions or the mental faculties of a child cannot be depicted in sexual or fetish content." We are aware that a penalty notice is floating around social media that included unclear wording, causing it to be misinterpreted. We have adjusted our response according to feedback so that it is more comprehensible. Please let us know if you have any questions. So, from what I can gather, it seems that FA is still fine with baby fur content, but they're hammering down on content where age-regressed characters are in sexual or fetishistic situations. Personally, I think this is fine. I mean, maybe I'm wrong for seeing artwork of a baby fur filling their diaper and assuming it's a kink or fetish, but I just don't find much issue with cracking down on mentally regressed characters in sexual situations. I think the main problem here just comes down to two things. One, this kind of was implemented out of nowhere, as it seems there were no penalties for posting that content until now. And two, if this was their intention, then they aren't really implementing it properly when, regardless of what was said in the penalty notice, non-sexual baby fur art was getting caught in the crosshairs. This could be chalked up to a miscommunication between the team, but until we get a statement concerning that from Skiggles, we can't exactly claim that for certain. And I think that statement being made becomes a lot less likely when you notice that Skiggles wasn't exactly able to deal with this head on, as at the time of this happening, she was in the hospital dealing with her own personal health emergency. Since then, she's been released, so she certainly could address it, but unless that happens, we're still currently left in the dark in regards to Fur Affinity's future. But hey, at least we know they aren't planning to sell it off for profit, so I guess that's something. So, now that we're at the end of the video, what is there to say about the drama that befell us this month? Well, all I can say is that after researching this video, I have seen a lot more fecal matter, drawn or otherwise, than I feel is healthy for the average person. So maybe it's time to cool off from the furry drama for a bit. That's all to say that I have some upcoming content that probably won't be drama oriented. Although I would like to know your guys' thoughts on if you prefer me to talk about furry drama in these more segmented roundup style videos between the projects I have more of a focus on. But until then, be sure to stay safe out there.
Funding for this program was made possible by